Welcome to the Misretrospective, where we take the classics and look at them through a modern lens. My name is Kirby Carry-On, and I am your host here. In today's episode, I'm really excited to bring you guys something new, something fresh, if you will. Because for 16 episodes now, we've actually done the part where I haven't seen the subject matter before we go on the podcast. But for this one, I've got something special going for you. I have brought on my wife, Heather, to talk to us here about her experience with two matches that I think are classics, and something that could be highly influential to the people in professional wrestling. Now, I know I've seen glimpses of her liking wrestling before, and I've wanted to get to the crux of what it was that she enjoyed. So today, we're going to be talking about Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 21, as well as the classic from NXT Takeover Brooklyn between Bayley and Sasha Banks. And again, she hadn't seen these before, so she had no preconceived notions of anything. The extent of what I told her beforehand was that Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels just wanted to be the best at WrestleMania, and that's why that match happened, even though there was a little bit more to it. But then for NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, I actually told her a little bit more about the story, Bayley's rise, and why this match was an encapsulation or a blow-off, if you will, of this matchup. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Heather to see if we finally made her a wrestling fan.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Misretrospective in what I think is potentially going to be one of the, I'm going to call it special episodes, because we're kind of flipping it on its head. Today, I've got my wife Heather here, back at it again. Last time, you guys saw her do Psycho here on the Misretrospective, which, by the way, the Misretrospective is all about looking at the modern, or I should say at the classics through a modern lens. But it's always been about me watching stuff that I've never seen before. However, this time, I chose to kind of flip it on its head, because you guys have known here listening to the podcast, she's not a wrestling fan by any stretch. When we met, I asked her if she knew who The Rock was, if she knew who Stone Cold was, and for The Rock, she's like, the actor, and for Stone Cold, she's like, I have no idea who that is. Which, by the way, we are recording in our home, so you may hear some pitter-patter here and there, and that is our dog, Edwin. You might actually see him kind of crawl up over here on this bed, because he does have a bed back here. But he's been fed. He's already went out, so he's all good. He's taken care of. Just so, you know, to give us time to talk about this stuff. So, Today's episode, the reason I wanted to do this is kind of like a think piece, kind of like a what is the casual viewing audience looking for? Because as I've told you before, many times before, wrestling is this never-ending story. It is this thing that just goes on and on and on. And I've tried to introduce you to it in a lot of different ways and a lot of different formats and everything. And there hasn't really been something that's made you bite. For lack of a, like, I could go on forever about how much I've been trying and everything, but the only thing that I've really seen you bite on is WrestleMania 41, the triple threat between Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, and Bianca Belair. And that was the one where you were like, there was a false finish, and you're like, and it didn't happen. And I was like, oh my God, you bit. Okay, what was different about that? And that's kind of like really reopened everything for me, because I think at that point I was done trying to get you to like wrestling, which is fine. I understand if you don't like wrestling, but since it's something that I'm incredibly passionate about, it's, you know, when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, okay, there may be something here. So before we get more into it and explaining what exactly we're going to be doing here, why don't you go ahead and reintroduce yourself to everybody watching, listening, and everything. That way they can kind of get an idea of like maybe your background, you know, just in general. Because before we did movies. Now I'm curious what you would like to let the masses know about your experience with professional wrestling, even if it's like maybe before we even met.
Okay. Hello. My experience with wrestling has been basically nothing. I've never seen any matches. I know like Hulk Hogan and The Rock, but I want to say it was just really from commercials. I've never actually sat down and watched a match. None of my family is really into wrestling. It was, I guess I also knew the trope from TVs and shows where it's like, it's fake. It's not real. It's fake. And I think that influenced my perspective going into it, because it just kind of felt like there was a facade of like they're trying to trick you. When that's not really what it is. Like how you've explained it to me before, it's theater. It's live theater. And I don't know, just watching it, I haven't really been able to get into it because I think you've mentioned it before. It's kind of like comic books. They're like superheroes and supervillains. And it just kind of comes across as kind of gimmicky to me. And I also want to preface that when I'm explaining my viewpoint or my opinion, I'm in no way trying to belittle or make it sound like I'm being judgmental. I'm just trying to state like my perspective.
Yeah, and again, that's why like I do also want to mention that you've never been a fan before.
Yeah,
and it's a completely new world.
Yeah,
and it's not like, hey, let me when we met and I try to get you into wrestling, it wasn't just like a gentle like, hey, let's watch maybe an episode here and there. It was like, let me just throw you into the deep end because I'm involved in professional wrestling. So I also explain it in a much different way than a fan would. And we've I think it was a revelation that we had recently that it was just the way that you view that specific television show when it comes to wrestling. It's completely different because it is live theater, but you haven't gotten that attachment to a character, and it's just like you feel like you're diving into the middle of a movie rather than the beginning, which is really hard to do.
That's a good way to phrase it.
And that's something that you expressed to me recently, and I was like, okay, so how can I get through that hurdle? Because that was after WrestleMania 41, but feel free to continue.
Yes, and then we started to watch. You started to show me different matches of different things that were happening from recent matches that have happened, and I started to really enjoy the women over the men because the women, they just wrestle better. Like they are gymnastics, a lot of them, and that shows in the way that they move, the way that they recover from certain pins or certain attacks. And it just, with the men, to me, it feels like I'm big, I'm intimidating, I have a lot of muscles, so I'm gonna do you one hit and then that's pretty much it. You're gonna lay there, I'm gonna walk around, be intimidating. And it's like, okay, sure, but in real life, if you guys were gonna have a match, like you're equally sized opponents. Like it wouldn't be just a punch in the face and then you're like, oh, ow, it hurt, my face hurts. And it feels like the women grapple more than the men do, like right out of the gate. With the men, that doesn't really come around until, and I know there's probably matches that prove me wrong and emphasize this more than others.
And again, that's why it's your perspective is important, just as important as anybody else's, I promise you.
Thank you. But it's just the men don't really kind of get to that point until the end, until it's like last breath. They're like trying desperately. They're giving it all to be able to get that pinfall. And I don't know, the women just do the whole match better. Like it's more believable and they're just more invested, it feels like, throughout the entire thing. From what I've told you before, am I giving a good kind of representation?
Again, this is an open forum for you to say whatever it is that you want, and I'm not gonna argue with you on anything because it is good perspective.
Okay.
Again, as a casual viewer, I've told you before, you're like my litmus test for a lot of people. I was like, hey, if I showed you this, if you're flipping through channels, would this stop you immediately to would it entertain you to the point where you're like, I want to be invested in this. I want to give this my time. So okay,
I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, so it's funny that you mentioned that the women are better than the men, because currently, and this is an opinion, and it's a very common opinion as of late, is that the women are carrying professional wrestling right now, not just in WWE but also AEW, in literally everywhere. The NXT women's division is like the greatest women's division of all time currently, which is ironic because that's one of the matches we're going to be talking about right now in this podcast. And it's amazing because like I came into wrestling in 2004. That's when I started. And at the time, women were just treated as eye candy for the most part. There were still some good wrestlers here and there, like, for example, Mickie James, Trish Stratus, amongst others, Jazz, Jacqueline. And those are names that I don't feel like you're aware of.
Nope.
So, it's not that it was just like they were just the sideshow.
Yeah.
It was that they weren't given the same equal opportunities that they are now.
Yeah.
Before, it used to be a big deal when the women main evented. It used to be a big deal when there was a steel cage match for the women. Like, those were the big things, but now it's commonplace. And it's amazing to see, because then everything is really seen as equal, which is fantastic, because I think that's how it should be. But that's what I grew up with. And watching NXT in 2013, when the whole turn started happening with women's wrestling, with Paige, with Emma, Summer Rae, and then the Four Horsewomen, which is one of the matches we're going to be talking about, it was amazing to see. And for you to tell me, like, now that the women are more believable, it is amazing just to see the growth since I started watching wrestling to now me introducing you to it, to where now you're like, I just want to watch the women, which is cool. Because I love the accessibility of it all, for everybody, because it doesn't matter who you are. I would just hope that you are a wrestling fan at the end of the day. And there's our first Edwin appearance right there. I don't know if you guys heard him just kind of bark or kind of just whimper there. But that's our dog Edwin. If he wants to jump up here, I'm pretty sure he can. Okay, so to kind of break through that wall now, I showed you 2 matches just now. We literally just finished watching that in our living room. And the first one was a men's match.
Yes.
A match that I wholeheartedly feel is one of the greatest matches of all time. You can grab him up if you want. Yeah, because there he is.
Come here, Dwayne.
He that's his first appearance on the podcast there. That's our dog Edwin, by the way.
He will jump down. He acts like a cat.
Yeah, he's very much a cat. So one of the matches that we watched was WrestleMania 21 with Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 21. It is very much looked at as a fantastic match, but it's not a match that is brought up as one of the greatest matches of all times, which I think is a travesty, quite frankly, because I think that's one of those matches that I just continually think about over and over again, that doesn't get the respect that it deserves as one of the greatest matches of all time. But with that said, I told you that I was going to have questions, but I told you to also hold off on your thoughts, not telling me until we were recording. So before we start getting into the questions, what did you think of the match?
I really liked it.
Okay.
I liked it right from the start.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was different about that match from all the stuff I've shown you recently?
It was the fact that the men got into the ring and they were grappling. And it wasn't like they had a moment and then they took a break and went back at it again. It was, he goes and tries to get him, and then the other guy gets out and then goes at him. And then I also noticed that normally in matches I've seen in the past, their breaks where they're able to take a breather is when they're apart and they're trying to compose themselves. In this match, they were doing that while they were in holds. And I'm like, I like this. It's real. It seems like an actual match. Like they're putting everything into it. Like that was the first thing I noticed right out of the gate.
Okay. And it's really funny that, again, this is the reason I wanted to show you this match specifically. When I thought about showing it to you was because when I started this podcast, the first match I ever did was Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero from 1997.
Yes.
And I was watching it at our apartment before we moved to this house, and you were like, hey, what's this? And you were just drawn in. And I was like, okay, what was different about this than everything else? And that's when I started realizing a little bit. And again, I love the fact that this podcast is making me realize these things. It made me realize that professional wrestling has evolved. And I never noticed that it had evolved from that time period, which that match I'd never seen before. That was my first time watching it. And I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. And then you were watching it and you were like, holy crap, this is amazing. And I was like, well, yeah, duh, it's Eddie Guerrero. Like,
and
of
I was
course.
like, why don't they wrestle like this anymore?
And that's when I started thinking more about it. And I started thinking more about older matches and why I liked them so much. And I think it was like, I love the theatrics of now. Like, it's like basically a little bit more cinematic. Like, it's a lot more like drawn out to make you feel stuff. Like it gives them a chance to give more emotions. But I do love that competition aspect of I'm seeing two athletes that are at their best go at it.
Yes.
And they can create that tension. They can create that emotion out of their actions in the ring. And I started thinking more about AEW now, which I know that I don't think that's a company I've shown you a lot of. We went to a show once for Dynamite, and you were enthralled by Toni Storm, which that was when she debuted the Timeless gimmick, and which that was like 3 years ago now, and now she's one of the biggest stars in AEW. But anyways, I started thinking more about why those performances meant a lot more to me, and why that era seemed to just not be there anymore.
Yeah.
And again, that's why. Again, I'm like, I want to show her this match, and I want to cover it to see what she thinks.
Yeah.
So you said it felt more real. What do you think made it feel more real?
So you gave me the backstory of the situation and what was happening.
And it was really short.
It was really short. But you set up that one of them, Kurt Angle.
Chris Angel's a magician.
Oh no.
Mind freak.
Oh no. But he was the Olympic wrestler. And then the other guy,
Shawn Michaels.
I do want to say I'm terrible with names, just in general.
You're good. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help.
Yes, and he is a professional wrestler. This is his stage. This is what he's really good at. And I loved that right out of the gate. Michael enters. Shawn Michaels comes in, and he's dressed like a wrestler. He's dressed like what I'm used to seeing. Very theatrical, very eye-catching outfit. Comes into the ring, and he's just drawing attention. He's making an appearance. Then you have Kurt come in, totally different. He's not trying to do anything for anybody. He's dressed in an Olympic-looking outfit.
A singlet, yeah.
Yes, and he is just looking at his opponent. He's just staring him down, and he's just slowly walking into the ring. And it's just the difference. Like, they really emphasized the difference between them. And it was fantastic. And also, during the match, normally when I've seen people cheating, it's comical. It's cartoony. It's not something that anybody would actually do. But in this match, you see Kurt. You see Kurt grabbing his hair right in front of the ref. The ref is right there, and he doesn't care. He's right there. And the ref is like, you gotta stop, and then he stops. But it just further emphasized that, like, this isn't his domain. This isn't what he does. And he doesn't care. Like, he's breaking the rules because it's what he knows how to do. And it was so good because the dynamic of him also being the heel and Michael being the face, it also it allowed the viewer to, instead of going into it being like, oh, clearly the Olympian's going to win, you didn't want him to win. You were hoping that the other guy was going to win. You were not rooting for the big guy who clearly could win. You were rooting for the other guy. And then to see that during the match, Kurt ended up getting a bloody mouth, and it was like a very visual injury that he had, but he was still coming at him. It was scary. And it was so good. And then when he was holding him, he was holding him up in the air. They were outside of the ring, and the table was completely laid out for him to throw him. And I'm like, okay, that's clearly what he's gonna do. But he didn't. He turned around and threw him at the pole. I was like, oh. Ooh.
Misdirection, yeah.
Misdirection, which normally I don't see in matches. And that was so awesome. And then at the very end of it, when they're struggling and you're really hoping that Michael is going to be able to reach for the rope, and he doesn't. He ends up tapping. That was devastating.
I saw you react to the finish, and I was like, oh, she bit. And I told you, don't tell me anything until we record. But I saw that reaction. I was like, that's the same reaction we got at WrestleMania 41. So, okay. So you basically took us through the whole match.
Yeah.
Now, again, just kind of out of curiosity, we know that the heels cheat. We know that the faces don't.
Yeah.
How did you feel whenever Shawn Michaels hit that low blow on Kurt Angle on the apron? Because before, like, he was trying to German suplex him off of the ring onto the table behind them, and then Shawn Michaels hit him with a low blow, like almost out of desperation. And even commentary covered it. They're like, "Oh, look at the desperation," from Shawn Michaels, and that's not something he normally do. The heels, the faces don't cheat. So I'm curious how it made you feel.
I didn't even notice that was cheating. I just thought he was hitting him to stop him.
Gotcha.
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, a low blow would get you disqualified, but the ref was like right over him, like kind of like tell him like, hey, like back up, like don't do that, like that you're gonna ruin your career and stuff like that. So okay, I was wondering, like, again, that was just one of the things that I was like, how are you feeling about this? Because again, the baby faces usually are the ones that don't cheat, and they don't take shortcuts. I shouldn't say they don't cheat. They don't take shortcuts. But I mean, by now Shawn Michaels has been through a massive career. This is, I want to say 5 years before he retired. So he still had a few more years ahead of him and everything. But I love the fact that you picked up on like the realism of it. And I haven't seen this match in like, I want to say 3-4 years, I think. And it's one of my favorite matches of all time. I haven't studied it with new stuff that I've learned as of late. And it's really funny how Booker always tells us this: when you're out there, you've got to work. And a lot of people don't understand what that means. And when I see it click for people, it's amazing. Because
did you see that in this match?
I did. I saw these guys work because this is a thing that I've kind of like started figuring out doing this podcast. A lot of the stuff now recently, I keep saying it feels overproduced, but I really feel like that's the wrong word for it. And I'm really trying to find a word for it. It just feels like
too polished.
That's probably the best way to put it, actually. It's too polished to where it's like everything seems like it's got to go into place like a puzzle, right? Yeah. It's not gritty. It's not like you're actually in a fight. Yeah. And I've watched old Booker stuff from WCW, and I'm still going to do an episode with Kevin about that, and it was amazing. Yeah. And I can't wait to talk to Kevin about that because I have a lot of things to say about that and the specific stuff that I watched. Yeah. But watching this one, I saw a lot of that. This wasn't planned. We had the bullet points. Yes. How are we going to get to point A? How are we going to get to point B? But we're just going to tell this story and just kind of let it flow here and create the in-between as we're out here. And I think that is when wrestling is at its best, whenever the gray is created out there rather than, talked about in the back. Because I feel like that's something that happens a lot now. And I think that's why you tell me that wrestling sometimes feels hokey. Yeah. Because it just feels like there's not necessarily that natural feel of like we're out here fighting, we're out here doing theater. We have a sequence to fulfill rather than we're just having a conversation, right? Yeah. So it's fascinating, and this is also just something that kind of goes hand in hand with something I heard with John Cena recently, and it was amazing to hear him talk on the Cody Rhodes podcast. He was talking about like bringing us in as the audience as a voice to the match. We are very much the deciders of what happens in the match, but the performers have to listen to us, like having a conversation.
Yes. Okay, that was another thing that I really picked up on in this match was the fact that you can hear the crowd build as the match went on, and the fact that at the end they kind of prolonged it where it was back and forth who's going to win, but the audience was into it. It didn't feel drawn out. Didn't feel like they missed their mark. Like everybody wanted to see what was going to happen, and then you could even see like everybody on their feet, like just that level of excitement. Like the crowd hit a fever pitch, and they held that throughout the end of the match, and it was good. It
was WrestleMania after all, and WrestleMania is the biggest show of the year. I mean, as a matter of fact, we're talking about WrestleMania 41 and the triple threat match. This match happened 20 years before that. So this match is literally 20 years old. So it's kind of crazy to think about that now, because when I started watching wrestling 20 years ago was 1984. Yeah. And so that was, the peak of Hulkamania, or I think it may have been starting. I'm not sure. But it was like when WWE was first starting as like that was the peak Hulkamania. So, it's just like that, the evolution of that, and just overall the performance that was that captivated you? Because I was trying not to pay attention to you because I wanted to be completely surprised of everything. But I noticed that whenever Shawn tapped and you were like, ah, and I was like, there it is. Okay, cool. So if you were to give the match overall a rating, just like from your own scale, where would you put it at?
I feel like I would give this one. I feel like I'd give it a 10.
Okay. What would be the biggest reason for you giving it a 10?
Because it looked like the two guys were actually fighting. You felt it. They didn't go into the taking a breather when we're like trying to compose ourselves until the very end of the match when it made sense. And it was like up until the end. It wasn't until Michaels was trying to tap out or like debating whether or not that kind of felt like kind of theatrical. He felt like more of an actor in that moment. Mm-hmm. But everything else throughout the match, it didn't feel staged. It felt like they were going at it.
Mm-hmm. So out of curiosity, this is just like something that I'm just thinking about. What do you think happened after this match? Because I told you there were two different brands.
Yes.
And this one, SmackDown and Raw, were completely split. And this was like a special attraction match. So the Raw people never showed up on SmackDown. The SmackDown people never showed up on Raw. And it was rare, like incredibly rare when they did. So in your opinion, like just based on what you've seen, and obviously I've told you before, for a majority of the time, the babyface always wins in the end, like to encapsulate a story, right? Yeah. The babyface always wins. What do you think happened after this match? Just story-wise, like just how do you think the television show continued after this?
Did Michaels try to make a big deal for a rematch?
Well, I'm just, like I said, I'm just curious. Where do you think the characters went?
That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Am I right?
You would be right. Months later. Because there is a rematch. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, this was the year of this happened last year. No, yeah, this was the year. This was the year of the big draft. I guess I'll tell you exactly what happened. Yeah. So 2005 was the year of the big draft. We had, there was another SmackDown versus Raw match that happened at WrestleMania 21. And it was Randy Orton, which I know you know the name of, and The Undertaker, which I know is another name that you know. And that was also another Raw versus SmackDown match. The Undertaker was undefeated at WrestleMania at this point still, and this was when they started bringing a lot more attention to it.
Was he a face or heel?
Yes. Okay. Randy Orton was the cocky young heel who was coming into WrestleMania. Now a former world champion, because he won his first world championship in 2004. And he started talking about how he was going to go to WrestleMania and beat The Undertaker, because Randy Orton's whole story at the time was that he was the legend killer. He went after legends, so he took out I think Sergeant Slaughter, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, like everybody that's a legend, like you know, the actual like Cactus Jack or Mick Foley, all those people, like he took them down. That was his whole thing. He beat them. And so it was, you know, a big deal. That was his whole character. He took out the legends. Kind of similar. Think of it this way. To put it in today's term, think of what Gunther is doing. Okay. Now he took out John Cena. Yeah. Now it looks like he's taking out AJ Styles, and that's what he's doing. Yeah. So that's what Randy Orton was doing back then. So he's like, I'm gonna call my shot. I'm gonna go to WrestleMania, and I'm gonna end the Undertaker streak. That was his story at the time. Okay. He failed. He lost to The Undertaker. And so it was a big deal. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because this was the year of the big draft. Because the way that they did this draft was, in my opinion, phenomenal. Yeah. And I wish they would replicate this again, but they have to kind of split the shows a little bit more to make it work. Okay. The way that it worked was that in story there was going to be a draft lottery, basically, where Raw would get a SmackDown person and SmackDown would get a Raw person each week for 5 weeks. Okay. So each week somebody traded shows, and somebody went to the other show, and you had to tune into Raw to find out who it was. On SmackDown, the same thing. And again, this was when the shows did not cross over at all. So it was a big deal that this was all happening. Unfortunately, as I think I was 13 years old at the time. This was when John Cena went from SmackDown to Raw, and my heart was broken because I wanted to keep John Cena on SmackDown. But that's when he was the WWE champion in his first reign, and he moved to Raw because Raw was the flagship show at the time, because SmackDown was on network television, and Raw was on cable, which was where they got the bigger ratings. So they wanted the big champion starting to come out as a star to move over to Raw.
Yeah.
So we lost John Cena, and I was like, well, fuck, that sucks. The week after that was my favorite week because the way that they did this draft was kind of like equal stature superstars traded over. The first week, John Cena moved over to Raw. I forgot who was the first one from Raw to SmackDown that week after. But then the second week was the WrestleMania opponents switching. So Kurt went to Raw, and we started setting up the rematch between him and Shawn Michaels.
Okay.
For SmackDown, Randy Orton went from Raw to SmackDown to do the rematch between Undertaker and Randy Orton. But this happened at SummerSlam.
Okay.
And that was SummerSlam is like the second WrestleMania, like that's the summer one, right? So that's when we got the rematch. So we got Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels rematch at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, that's when Shawn beat Kurt Angle. So that's when he got his win back. And then Randy Orton beat the Undertaker at SummerSlam. But he still, beat the Undertaker, but it wasn't that big a deal because it wasn't a WrestleMania. So, but he still got his win back, right?
Okay.
So that's what ended up happening. And the SummerSlam match, it plays back to this match a little bit more. There's a little bit more emotion behind it because now it's not that first one-off match where they don't have any history prior to this. Because I told you the story going into WrestleMania 21 was the fact that Kurt Angle's like, I'm an Olympic wrestler. You can't even. I can wrestle circles around you, and then that's how the match started. Shawn was getting that headlock takeover, and he just kept getting him back, and you saw the frustration building for Kurt. And it's those little details.
Awesome.
It's those little details that is just like, well, crap, I underestimated Shawn, and then that's when everything kind of starts devolving into the match and everything. It was amazing. So that's where that ended up, and I'm glad that you liked it, because now I feel like I can show you something, and we're probably not gonna do this for the podcast. I just want to show it to you. The year prior to this, at WrestleMania 20, I know you liked Eddie Guerrero. I now know you like Kurt Angle. That was the WWE Championship match of WrestleMania 20.
Okay.
So the performance, not the character itself, the performance.
Okay.
So Eddie Kurt was my first WWE Championship match that I watched, because that was WrestleMania 20, and that's when I started watching wrestling.
Yeah.
So I think you would enjoy that, especially with like the shenanigans that happened in the match, because that match was like peak Eddie, and it was amazing. So cool. So I'm glad that you liked it, and I'm glad that I was able to show you something that you again bit into,
especially for the men.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I wanted to do two matches for this one. That one. And now the one we're going to talk about. And this is the one I'm very interested in hearing you talk about, because as I mentioned before we started recording, these were 10 years apart.
Yeah.
One happened in 2005. The other one happened in 2015. And we're going to be talking about Sasha Banks and Bayley from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Now, I've already told you the story leading into this match, and that one took me a little bit longer to explain, because the difference between these two matches was that Kurt and Shawn was one of those like big spectacle matches that's like, oh my God, we're never going to see this. It's rare. And there's really not that much story other than these two just want to prove that they're the best. And it's that simple. For Sasha and Bayley, there was like a whole year prior of story with Charlotte being the NXT Women's Champion, and then Sasha winning the championship, and then Bayley never getting to that level. And she was being told that she wasn't good enough, that, she kept falling short at the finish line. And Sasha being the one that dethrones Charlotte, and becoming the giant star that she ended up becoming and everything. But again, at the time, the women were still not being given those opportunities on the main roster, at least, because it all started in like 2013, 2014, when Paige, Emma, Summer Rae, all those people were starting to make a name for themselves on NXT, being given time. When on the main roster, we had AJ Lee, who's still, doing her Divas run, but they still were not given enough time. Caitlyn, Nikki Bella, Brie Bella, amongst others. Michelle McCool was already kind of out of the picture by this time. And, it was they were still not being given time like the NXT girls were, and they weren't telling stories like the NXT girls were. And this was just such a magical time for NXT, because again, like I still have a picture of me with Emma because she was my favorite at the time before the 4 Horsewomen came along. And I told her just how amazing her match with Paige was, how enthralled I was, and how happy I was that, you know, the women were given opportunities in WWE at the time, because again, that was unheard of. Which it's crazy to think about. It's barely 2026, so I'm still gonna say that was 10 years ago, even though it's about to be 11 years. But you know, I told you the story of everything that happened in this match. So now you told me that you had a good reaction to this match, even though I didn't see you bite like the Shawn Michaels Kurt Angle match.
The women,
but you know, feel free to, now the floor is yours. Tell me everything you thought about this match.
So right off the bat, we see Bayley enter first, and I was not a fan of her music, not really a fan of her outfit, but she played the part that she was playing well, which is inexperienced, wanting to be somebody, not quite there. But I really liked that she was interacting with the crowd. As she was walking in, she gave a bracelet to a kid. She was greeting people like she was involved. She was with everybody. And then she gets into the ring, and then when Sasha enters, she's in a car, like not interacting with anybody. She has her bodyguards around her, and she enters the ring, and it's just, I like that they made the distinction between them like that. And I didn't notice the significance of it until Sasha had Bayley on the floor and she was mocking her for it, like basically saying, you think just because the people love you that you're somebody, and then she kicked her in the face, and it was awesome. Something that I feel like really pulls me into the women matches way more than the men is, I think I wish we had watched the men second, only because the women grunt. You can actually hear them grunting, and I don't know if you hear that with the men.
It may be because of the production stuff now. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, at the time they didn't have ring mics to pick up ring sound. I think.
Okay.
Because you do hear.
You do?
You do. Now I feel like you do now.
Okay. Because
and that, again, 10 years apart. So
True.
Production's different.
True, but it feels like with most women matches I've watched, you hear the women like struggling, like audibly struggling. And I don't feel like that's something that's really prominent with the men's matches. And so with the women, it gives that more like real, authentic feeling that comes across. And then the women immediately, they're great. They start grappling. They're going at each other, getting out of pinfalls and moves, and it's just great. The women are great. It's so good. I don't know. I don't really have any comments on the match as a whole. It's just, I don't know. The women are just good. I really like the women.
Did the flow of the match kind of make you believe at any point that Sasha was going to win?
I don't know. With the men's match that we were watching, there was an obvious, like, we want to know what's going to happen. This man is an outsider. Is he going to be able to do it? With the women, it was just, they're both maybe not on the same level, but they're from the same company. They both know what they're doing. It could go either way. So I wasn't really expecting one win either way. With the men, though, the way that you had me watch that one first, and the person I wanted to win didn't win, made me think that Bayley wasn't going to win this one, because during the match I started to really feel for her and side for her, and I just wasn't sure if she was going to get it. But then to see her actually be able to achieve it, that was really awesome.
Okay,
that was good.
Okay, that's interesting. I think it's hilarious that you keep calling Kurt an outsider, because it's like it's the same company.
I guess what I keep thinking about is the fact that he's an Olympian, and the way he was wrestling, the way he was cheating, it didn't align with what I've seen before from heels.
That's fair. Okay, that's entirely fair. I guess I don't think about Kurt as an outsider, because like when I hear outsiders, I think other company like WCW and all that stuff. But you're right. He was an Olympian wrestler. He was an Olympic wrestler. Like he was
And
he was in a different
his
sport.
outfit was different. I'm sure there are some male wrestlers that have the same, what is it called again?
A singlet.
Singlet, but I don't know.
No, that's entirely fair.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't think about it that way when you call him an outsider, coming from a different sport.
Yeah.
So that makes total sense thinking about that. Okay, so again, they're 10 years apart. Out of these two matches, which would you prefer more? The style of it, because now we're getting into the territory where I told you, like, more recent WWE is, again, like more what was the word that you used? I said overproduced, and I didn't want to use that word. Polished. There you go. So now we're getting more into the area of, like, this looks more polished rather than a live performance where anything can happen type of thing. Like it's a fight, right? So now that's like the beginning of that era where wrestling has evolved to now. Like you said, it looks more polished. So just based on that, which do you prefer more out of the two performances?
I think the best way to explain it is, I feel that Bayley, it was more believable when she was struggling at the end to try to get the rope than it was with Michaels. With Michaels, it didn't read like authentic. I don't know really how to explain it. His movements, they were more mechanical, I guess. Like, you see his hand, he's like,
It's that desperation, yeah.
It's desperation that's clearly, oh my gosh, what's the word? Manufactured. It's manufactured desperation. But with Bayley, it felt like genuine, authentic desperation. And I don't quite know how to explain what the difference was. But it was believable with Bayley. It really looked like she was trying. There weren't any added movements for her to try to make it. She wasn't trying to make you believe that she couldn't reach the rope, because it was clear that she couldn't reach it. Whereas with Michaels, he was really building it up. He was really, like, emphasizing, I can't do it. But with Bayley, it was just, I can't. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep emphasizing that I'm putting an effort to get there. But yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that's
Do you
very
know what
interesting.
I'm
I think I'm following, but like I told you before we started, it's like I was worried that you were going to think this was hokey, because again, I hadn't seen the match in 7 years, and then the Bayley Sasha match I just watched again like 4 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's like still fresh in my brain. And I told you, just remember, suspend all disbelief.
Yes.
I understand that it may be hokey. I understand that it, you'd be like, this is fake, like type stuff. And we've had that conversation before. But with wrestling, sometimes you have to suspend disbelief entirely. So you said it feels manufactured, which, yes, it is manufactured, because, they're not actually fighting, which, again, I think for 21 they probably were, because, they you still have to make it believable to a certain extent. And I mean, I saw some of those punches; they look fantastic, and that's one of the things that at Reality of Wrestling we teach. Got to make your punches look believable, otherwise it just takes everybody out of it. The submission holds, I don't think I've seen anybody twist an ankle like Kurt Angle does in a long time. I think Chad Gable recently has like really put an emphasis on his ankle lock as well. But like that, I'm gonna tap is like we saw with the John Cena match too. Like, he was like gonna tap, but then it's like, and I'm not going to, like, I'm fighting it and everything.
Because they're trying to convey what they're thinking, and I understand that.
Yeah. And with wrestling, especially because again, you have a camera in your face, so us in the television audience, we have the front row seat, literally the front row seat to the action that's happening. But for the people in the cheap seats that are up there, like all the way in the back, they still got to be able to see what's happening. So that's like the pantomime, right?
Okay.
It's like, I'm giving up, I'm not gonna do it. And that's the people all the way in the back should still be able to see everything that's happening no matter what. So that's where like the exaggeration and the pantomime comes into, because even though, yes, you have a camera right here in front of you and the TV audience is able to see everything, the people in the, like, because those are the people that are here. They're here to watch you, and they may not have $10,000 to drop on the front row seat, but you still got to give them a show, because if you forget about them, you lose a part of the crowd, and that's not what you want to do. So does that recontextualize everything?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Little by little, guys, we're gonna get her. Next week on the Miss Retrospective, Heather watches wrestling every single day. I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that to you. Okay, so I guess now this is going to be like the burning question. Out of these two, which did you prefer the most?
The women's.
The women's?
The women's.
Why? Because to me, it's sounding like you preferred the men's.
The men's were great. Okay, the reason I put so much emphasis on the men's is because compared to other male matches, that one was superior.
Okay.
When it comes to the women, like just comparing the two, the acting was just so much more believable from the women from start to finish, especially with Bayley and her struggle of trying to win the belt.
Hello, Edwin.
He swaps.
This is Edwin number 2, guys. It's the same Edwin. It's just the second time. He's like, look at me.
I know, and he never wants attention until it's like, I'm busy.
Yeah. Okay, so you preferred the women because of the believability of.
Do you know what I'm saying though? Like looking at Bayley, like she was doing a great job selling everything, every blow, every hit. And something I've noticed with the females is when they are attacking a specific part of the body, it feels like they play it up better. Or like being injured, they kind of play into it more and it's more believable.
Okay. And again, I'm not just saying okay to like, you know, be like, okay, cool, you got your point across.
But do you see what I'm saying?
No, I'm taking everything you're saying and like trying to like let it like settle.
Marinate?
Yeah, because like you bring up great points, like you really do. And again, the reason I wanted you to come out here and say all this stuff is because this is stuff that I don't think about.
Yeah.
Because I'm a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
I have been watching this for 20 years.
It's entertaining. You know all the people.
It's ingrained in my brain where I look at the little mechanics of like how the performance is put together.
Yeah.
I get enthralled in the stories because even though I learned under Booker T, I am still a fan at the end of it. And I mean, I've told you before, I love watching Sami Zayn work because he's my favorite wrestler and because I see a lot of myself in the character of like, you know, I'm the underdog. I'm not good enough to do this and I want to prove everybody wrong.
Yes.
And that's why I love the Bayley story as well, because the same thing. She was like, you know, in character, that nerdy kid that was always kind of pushed off to the side is like, you're not good enough until it was time for her to, you know, put her dukes up and be like, well, this is the biggest opportunity. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So Sami Zayn's rise to being NXT champion and Bayley's rise to being NXT champion are like neck and neck for my favorite stories in NXT.
Okay.
But Sami came first. So that's why he gets like that special one, especially because his story was literally just like that was to his face like you don't have that killer instinct, you're never gonna be good enough. And I mean, you know, my stuff, my fascination with Johnny, he's like right there with from saying like it's the same thing. Like I hate hearing that from people. It's like you're not good enough. I was like, well, I'm gonna prove you wrong. Like just in general, like it's not even just wrestling, like everything in my life. If somebody tells me you're not good enough, I'm like, haha, fucking watch me. So, you know, and that's kind of like where I resonate with stories a lot, especially for, you know, the smaller people, because I'm pretty average. You know, I'm 5'9". That's the average height and everything. I've always been overweight and I've been working on it and everything. And I want to prove people wrong that I am good enough to do everything, even though that's not even a part of what I want to end up doing in my career and stuff. But, you know, I have a really soft spot in my heart for this because, again, the way that I see this story was not just the story of Bayley not being good enough to be NXT Women's Champion. It was the story of Sasha and Bayley being given the opportunity to prove that they are main event worthy talent as women. And
that's
again,
a good point.
I told you before, like the women weren't given opportunities at this point. And it's really great seeing this match motivate a lot of people, especially women, to join professional wrestling. And I told you that before we got started. This match, I know I've had conversations with a lot of talent from Raw where they've told me that this is the reason that they started wrestling. And I love hearing that because, you know, I'm not a woman, so I don't know the struggles that it takes to be treated as an equal, and you know it sucks for me to hear that because I was like, I want to treat you like an equal, and I am gonna treat you like an equal. And I mean, I tell you all the time, like, you're smarter than me, and I know that you're smarter than me, but you know, that's how I from the grand scale of things. It's been
Yeah.
10 years now since this match happened.
Yeah.
And I love that now we have women's war games matches, and it's not even seen like as a big deal. It's like, oh shit, they're doing this
Yeah.
for the first time. It's like, no, it's just,
Yeah.
it's normal.
Yeah.
If the women main
Yeah.
event Raw, it's normal.
Yeah.
If the women have a
Yeah.
big feud, it's normal.
Yes.
And it's great that is just the new normal. The biggest star on two of the biggest stars right now on Monday Night Raw are Rhea Ripley and Io Sky.
Mm-hmm.
And they deserve that shit because they worked so fucking hard for it. And you know, they came after the four horsewomen,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't matter because that was the foundation. And now they're taking the baton with how much higher can we take this?
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
it was all those little things that created the platform that we have now to where they're treated as equals. And you know, it was just both women went out there with a point to prove. And here's the big thing that I want to tell you about this match as well. If I told you that this match closed out the show, would you believe me? Like that was the final shot with the four horsewomen coming out, and then the signature came up. It's like, all right, guys, we'll see you next week. Good night.
Was it not?
It was not.
Why?
Because the NXT Championship match happened after this.
Who?
It was Kevin Owens and Finn Balor for the NXT Championship in a ladder match. And here's the funny thing. I don't know if this story is true, but I've heard rumors, I've read stories and everything that Kevin Owens and Finn Balor were like, dog, we should not go last. Like it should be the women because that's the big story.
The women even made it a point to put up the four fingers, and then from what I saw, they went each side of the ring, all four sides, because it's a square, and they like.
Yeah, because there's
like,
the four
us.
horsewomen. Yeah,
like
the four
Bayley's
horsewomen.
here. Bayley's with us.
Yeah.
She did it.
Yeah. So it's fascinating to think that, you know, at the even commentary, because I don't know if you caught that or not. Even commentary was like, this is one of our two main events. It's like,
Oh,
but is
I
it
did not catch
really?
that.
Yeah, it was at the beginning. So you know, it's amazing just to see how far women's wrestling has come because two women were out there. They were given time to tell their proper story. And, you know, I still think it's one of my favorite matches of all time. It is a match that I can still watch from beginning to end and just be enthralled in the story because it takes me back to 2015. And it's like, this is how I felt. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this was August, because this was SummerSlam in Brooklyn in 2015. This was right before I started wrestling.
Really?
Right before I joined Reality of Wrestling, because the Sammy story was what got me really interested in wanting to join, and I started doing research on Reality of Wrestling, and I did my first fantasy camp a little bit after that.
Really?
And then watching this match was like, I really need to be a part of this. And 6-7 months later, because it was in August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So yeah, 8 months later, I started going to Reality of Wrestling. So I literally started my journey like after this, because I went to WrestleMania 32, which was unfortunately when Bayley lost the NXT Championship. I watched her lose the NXT Championship. It was heartbreaking.
That photo you took, that was of her entering the ring.
It was a few months after, because that was when they came here to Houston.
Yeah.
But then she lost it in Dallas.
Oh, I see.
They did WrestleMania 32 in Dallas.
Yeah.
And I went to Takeover, which was also Sammy's last NXT appearance. I was there for that. So that was really cool.
Before he moved to
the main roster full time, which again was amazing for me to see, because that was my first time I ever saw him perform. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I saw Sammy. Funny enough, I saw both of my favorites at the time lose, because Bayley lost the NXT Women's Championship and then Sami Zayn lost in his NXT match. Oof. But it was that match. That may be another one that I show you too, because that match needs absolutely no introduction. Just watch this, and that is to this day still considered one of the greatest NXT matches of all time. It was Sammy and Shinsuke Nakamura, which I don't know if I've ever told you about Shinsuke Nakamura.
Maybe.
But he's incredible. At the time, he was like one of the highest like names out of Japan, and I think he was like one of the biggest signings that NXT did at the time, and it was sensational. But that match is one of those that you don't need to have any story. It's just two amazing professional wrestlers doing their thing, coming together and creating magic. But there's a rumor, and I hope that this is true, and if I ever get to interact with Sammy, and I'm going to ask him, apparently the rumor is that before that match happened between him and Shinsuke, that they never even touched before the match. They just said, hey, nice to meet you. Bloom, done. And then they went out there and did everything on the fly. So the entire performance was not planned. They didn't go over anything. It was like, we're just going to go out there and wrestle. And the match is incredible.
What?
And the fact that I was there was amazing because it was magical.
Yeah.
But again, that's a rumor. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
From stories that I've heard from Booker, he's told me that he's literally gone to shows. It's like, all right, what's the finish? Cool. And then that's it. He didn't even talk to people. He just went out there and performed, which
sounds amazing because it sounds like, just
like going back to the Kurt Angle Shawn Michaels thing. I'm pretty sure they're like, all right, what's the finish? What are our bullet points? Let's just go out there and perform because it makes it real.
It's so good.
It makes it look more real.
It's so good.
So that I think, and again, this is just an opinion. I think that's what separates the good performers from the best performers, because then it's something like going out there to work, as they call it, is going to just transcend the performance as a whole. Because again, like it doesn't look pretty, or what was the word? Polished. Thank you.
Polished.
I'm gonna keep messing this up.
That's okay.
It doesn't look polished. It looks like a fight, which that's why I appreciate Gunther as a performer, because that's kind of what he does now. Like he just goes out there and performs. Edwin. We're going to keep taking Edwin breaks, guys. We're going to keep taking Edwin breaks.
He does not want to scoop. He does not want to be scooped.
We're also trying to be careful with picking him up because she just got a new tattoo literally like hours ago.
It's
so
bat.
Yeah, bats are her favorite. Now you have 3 bats on you.
No, I just have 2.
Are you sure?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you preferred the women's match.
Yes.
But you enjoyed the men's match. You were disappointed by the finish because you didn't want to see him lose. So, okay, I'm going to wrap this up with one question. And you can take as long as you want to say as much as you want.
Okay.
Because I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, just hearing your thoughts on this stuff. Because, again, I've been trying to get you to like wrestling for almost 3 years now. And I've already come to terms that you might not like it.
Yeah.
But the glimpses of everything that I've shown you that you've enjoyed, I'm trying to like deconstruct why you liked it, because I want to show you more. Because I think, and this is my theory, and I've told you this before, so it's not like I'm just dropping this on her out of the blue. I think it just needs, I think you just need to get hooked to a character and then just go from there and then follow their career. Because we tried that with Bayley, whenever she started doing the voices in her head stuff. Yeah. And then I've told you kind of where it's been going now, but it's not the focus of the show anymore. They don't give it time, even though it's still happening. So it's kind of like when a show starts, the season beginning starts and it hooks you in with like, oh shit, big story. But now it's like in that 10 episode stretch where things are just happening before the finale hooks you back in. Does that make sense?
Yes.
With the show structure and everything?
Yeah.
So the
because it's like a TV show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The difference between those shows and this is that this is live every single week. Every single week. And it never stops. With TV shows like Bob's Burgers, as a matter of fact, I'll give you this example. We started the I think it was like season 2 or season 3, wherever Bob is hooked up at the pier at the bottom with Mr. Fishoder. Yep. It's like that. We haven't reached that finale yet with the Bayley storyline of her having the voices in her head. Right now we're in all the stuff beforehand.
Where Linda and the kids are trying to find him.
We're just we're in that like part
limbo
of the story. We're in that limbo, right?
Yeah.
So whenever they find him tied down, that's when it's gonna be like, oh, Bayley turned on Lyra. Or Lyra learned how to embrace that power of hers. Because right now, all Lyra is doing is slapping her. And that brings out that the determined Bayley. It's like, oh, you idiots! And like, ding dong, hello, like that character and everything. So that's kind of what's happening right now.
Okay.
So anyways, all this to say, with the perspective that you have now, with your perspective as a non-fan, what advice would you give to up-and-coming wrestlers that they can use to hook you in as a casual fan, as a fan of theirs? Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I would say, from what I've seen, trust yourself. Trust yourself wholeheartedly in the movements you're going to do, in the interactions that you're going to have, in what you're trying to convey. there's been I've seen non-professional wrestling in person, and something I've seen from some of the new students is just like you can tell when they're thinking through what they're going to do. So just like trusting yourself, being confident going into it. I know that that's difficult to do, but just it looks so much better when you just go for it. I know what you're saying about following one character, and that could be it, but I found that what I find most enjoyable are the matches where it's like the interaction between both of them is sold really well, and it makes sense and it's believable. When it's just the one person, it's okay, but when it's two people, when it's a fight, I enjoy it. Trying to think. I don't know. I think that's basically it. It's just the showmanship of it, the believability between the two characters.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I hope that was an enjoyable experience for you, which it sounds like it was.
Yeah.
And one question I actually didn't ask. I asked you for the first one, but not the second one.
Yeah.
What would you rate the second match if you rate the first one a 10?
I'd rate the ladies a 10.
Just a 10? Not an 11?
Just a 10.
Just
we
a 10.
gotta cap it somewhere.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You don't want to give them an extra star to work towards, like Hank Hill?
Fine, I'll give them an 8.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I hope that was enjoyable for you,
was,
as it was for me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we talk about this literally every day. That I want you to be a fan of wrestling, but I've come to terms that you might not be, and that's okay. But I'm glad that we are able to find glimpses of
Common ground.
I don't want to call it hope, because that makes it sound like I'm still like holding on to hope that you're going to be like a mega fan like I am. But I love the fact that you are able to give me new perspective, because again, I'm so into the world of professional wrestling that I don't think about stuff the way that you do. And I should be, because, my goal is to get signed by a professional company, whether it be AEW, TNA, WWE, and whatnot and stuff. I want to help those companies get to different levels, because my goal, I would love to be a broadcaster. But at the end of the day, I want to be a person that can just help wrestling grow as a whole.
Yeah.
Because all the different companies, we always talk about them being different flavors of ice cream.
Yeah.
The way that AEW does things is different than WWE, and which is different from TNA, which is different from MLW, which is different from New Japan. And that's just because there's just different styles. And I may not like this style, but I do like this other one. But at the end of the day, it's all professional wrestling. Like it's all one art form, right?
Yeah.
People didn't like Picasso, but they might like Michelangelo, or it's like you're just artists, right? And you just that's kind of what I'm going after and whatnot. The simile or whatever it is, the comparison. There we go. So I just want to I want to be able to help anybody from any wrestling standpoint get to where they want to be.
Yeah.
And maybe one word that I say or one phrase that I say unlocks that next part of their brain. Because as much as the hardcore fans are great for the most part, they're going to watch wrestling regardless.
I actually have a question.
Answer.
Something I've noticed with throwing punches. Is there times where they throw an elbow?
Yes.
And because I don't know, sometimes it's confusing if they're trying to punch and they just overdo it, or if they are trying to swing with their elbow.
So usually it's a forearm. So it looks like an elbow, but they're hitting them with this. So that's why.
But would that come in like a punch?
Yes.
Okay.
And then they hit them usually across the chest with the forearm.
Okay.
Because it's not as proponent as it is now, because I feel like the rule has kind of been done away with. But I remember when I was younger, it was a very big thing that JR used to say on commentary, that they've got to watch out for the closed fist, because a closed fist to the face is illegal.
Oh.
So, and again, it's kind of been done away with as of late, but closed fist punches are illegal in professional wrestling.
So what's an open, like a claw?
You can't punch. Like it's a punch. You can't do that. But again, I feel like they've done away with that as of late because I don't hear it as a big thing, and that's why a lot of people throw forearms and stuff like that. But if they come at you with the elbow, usually it's a forearm that they're trying to connect with.
Okay.
So, anyways, like I was saying, your perspective is, I think, in my opinion, and I'm not just saying this because you're my wife, I think it's incredibly important for a lot of people to think about because ultimately the hardcore fans are always going to be there. The casual fans are not.
Yeah.
And there's got to be ways for us to hook you in and make you into a hardcore fan, or maybe even a lapsed fan, because like, even if you don't like it now, you may like it 5 years from now. You may like it 10 years from now. And there's going to be maybe there's one character that you just haven't been introduced to yet that you're like, I love this person and I will follow them to the ends of the earth. You haven't met your Bob's Burgers of wrestling yet. And that's something that I'm going to hang my hat on, which eventually, hopefully, your Bob's Burgers character comes by and, just you're hooked into wrestling to where like, this is it. This is all I wanted. And then boom, now you're hooked forever to where every Monday you're like, can we watch Raw? And it's like, yes, we can. Absolutely. But again, I really do truly appreciate your perspective. Again, I know it sounds like I'm saying that because you're my wife, but no, I really, really do, because anybody that I've talked to at Row that I kind of try and, give some words of advice to, I always tell them, would Heather stop to watch you? And that's literally where I ended. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, my wife doesn't like wrestling. What are you doing to get her involved and want her to see you as a performer? Because the hardcore fans are going to come by all the time.
Yeah.
The Row Nation, they're always going to come by.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do to get her to be like, I'm going to go spend my money on this guy because he earned it? And to kind of give a shout out there, I know Bug Gator has done a fantastic job of gathering your attention to where you literally have a t-shirt of his and you're like, I want to see what Bug Gator does because he's fun.
Yeah.
And that may be your character. Who knows? Because he's a goofball in character. Yeah. But I don't know if I've told you this recently, and I've been keeping you up with his stuff or not, but he's been more serious as of late. He's still a goofball. Yeah. But his wrestling's starting to come along really, really well to where now he's like a bigger deal as far as the totem pole goes of wrestling and everything.
And something that I've noticed from some of the students, talking slower helps a lot with understanding the character and like being drawn in. I know. Yeah.
So there you go, guys. Talk slower.
Talk a little bit slower.
Just like this. No, don't do that. I'm kidding. But no, I know I've already said this, but really thank you for your perspective on everything. Again, I hope that this podcast finds somebody that's out there that is maybe just looking for words of advice or be like, oh, let me see what this casual fan thinks of these matches. Did she like them? Did she not? Because that's kind of what I've been hyping up. Is like, I'm going to show my wife 2 really good fucking matches, generational matches. And I want to see if she likes them. Because, again, I thought you would because of 1997, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero. And I'm glad that you like both of them for very different reasons. Yeah. And, again, I hope that some of this stuff maybe resonated with some people out there that are like, okay, that's my goal. I'm going to impress Heather. And then maybe like 10 years down the road, people are going to be like, hey, I listened to your podcast and, I wanted to show your wife this match. And then boom, it's like, that was amazing. And, maybe that's how they get hooked. Yeah. But before we get out of here, is there any parting words that you would like to give out there to people listening, watching, wrestling fans in general, maybe?
Wrestling's fun. It's fun. Overall, it's fun. Yeah.
Cool. Wrestling's fun, guys. So thank you so much for listening to the Miss Retrospective, guys. I hope that you guys tune in next week because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, I think next week we're going to do the Kevin episode where we're going to talk about Booker T. And that's an episode that I've been really looking forward to getting done because, I mean, as you guys know, I'm part of Reality of Wrestling. So, that's... it's going to be a big one. And if Booker ever hears it, he's going to be like, what the hell? But, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Thank you so much for listening, guys, to the Miss Retrospective, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the Miss Retrospective. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe or follow the podcast in case you guys are interested in hearing more episodes here at the Miss Retrospective. We not only cover professional wrestling, we also cover movies. So make sure to stay up to date with everything that we've got going on here by, again, leaving that like and subscribe below and following us wherever it is that you get your podcast. We'll see you on the next one.